When we talk about social media strategy for radio stations, it's important to understand that we're not talking about bigging up your brand. Your audience does not care about your brand. In fact, nobody except your marketing department perhaps cares about that. Radio is not a flagpole. A lot of brands in social media think, oh, my social media is working if I have the tallest flagpole or the largest flag and I wave my brand in people's faces. We try and get stations to consider social media as a totem pole, as a place of community, as a place of meeting. Audiences respond to that identity, that shared place and space of meeting and identity. If you think about it, that's all radio is. You're all based on one community, one geographical area, one thing you have in common, one language, one social group. Maybe you all like jazz, maybe you all like fishing. But we should consider the strength of the totem pole at the heart of our radio station brand and then make our social media an extension of that totem pole, a place where we speak of our identity and our content in a way which draws people towards us and makes them feel safe to share and to invite others to join that community. To that end, this is one of my favorite quotes about social media and another important learning. People do not reward your brand, but they try to reward their friends. They will share your content. They will share what made them laugh. They will share what made them cry because they want their friends to engage with and enjoy that same content. They're not part of your radio station, and you shouldn't make your social media strategy just about promoting the station or promoting your sponsors. It's about delighting your audience and giving them things with which they can go on to delight their friends. So to the main two social media outlets that we work with, to Twitter and Facebook, they are quite different, and we are quite happy to talk to you individually about the demographic that you're trying to target or the messaging that you want to get out. But broadly, we split them between Twitter, which is for engaging with fans, and Facebook, which is about building up the family for your radio station. Twitter is a wonderful broadcasting platform that can reach very widely. So if you are speaking as a broadcaster and you're simply giving out a message and trying to reach a transient message to a wide audience, Twitter is definitely a good way to do that. If you're trying to build a community or build stronger relationships with people who are really engaged with the radio station, then Facebook is the place to turn to. And we can talk at another time, or you can find out how to get in touch with us if you want more information about making those connections. But rule number one about using social media is that radio station already has a big mouth. You already have a transmitter, you already have a powerful media brand. So the best thing that you can do, and the first thing that you should always look to do with social media, is to give it something that radio has long lacked, which is bigger ears, to listen to the voice of your audience and to listen to other newsmakers. And that's what Twitter is great at. Very few other media outlets have access to both Justin Bieber and the Pope, to Taylor Swift and to the Prime Minister. So we can use Twitter in particular as a social media to be really listening to the mood and mind of our audience and the voice of opinion makers and the voice of the artists, perhaps, of the music that we're playing. Radio, as I say, already has a large voice, and we often have a loud attitude, and we sort of looked at social media and radio and said, oh good, another platform for us to speak at. Rule number one, the first thing you should do with social media is to listen. So we try to encourage and build tools that allow radio stations to discover compelling content online. We can provide tools that, if you're playing a Katy Perry song, go out and find the official Facebook and Twitter platform of Katy Perry and pull her content towards you. But if you're interviewing somebody, if you're engaged in a news topic, if you're playing music from artists, be aware that there is compelling content out there that they will be sharing publicly and socially. And also be aware that that's available not just to you or your audience. So you should be across those platforms to help you to provide information about new concerts, about the latest and breaking news information, but also be aware that your audience already knows much of that information. And so if you're not informed, you are probably the least well-informed person in that conversation. There are two ways that we work with radio stations to use social media content. For smaller stations, social media is brilliant for direct interaction and connectivity and engagement with your audience, and we'll talk about that in a second. To the largest stations we work with, if you're receiving tens of thousands of messages, then we can help to look at trends or sentiment information or the level of engagement at a mass level. And if you're receiving tens of thousands of messages, it's not important that you read every single piece of content, but it is that you engage with each individual opinion, each question which is being asked, each sentiment which is being expressed, and you can engage at those levels. It's better, however, for stations who actually receive a smaller amount of content, and to them I have a very different rule, which is our social media rule number 2. So first, you should listen, and second, you should engage and reply. It's important that if you receive even 1,000 social media messages a day, that you should make it an aim, ideally, to reply to each and every one of them. I say this with a case study as an example. This is 102.3 Now Radio in Edmonton. Some of you may have heard their story. It dates back about 4 years ago now, but they launched in February 2010, and the radio station took off like a rocket. After 30 days, they were number 8 in a market of 18 radio stations. After 60 days, they were in the top 5, which is in the 25 to 54 year bracket. They very rapidly moved up to become number 1, but they had no music strategy. Their only strategy was, because all of the top 5 music formats had already been taken, there was no sort of mass appeal hot AC format. 80s had gone, 90s had gone, the 2000s had gone. So the radio station chose no positioning statement at all. They never made a single music claim. They just said that social interaction would drive the radio station, that it would reflect on air every message, and they would reply to every listener and every opinion. That they did, and they grew to number 1 in record time. More importantly, they now receive 20% of all the advertising revenue in the market in which they operate. They're popular both with female and male listeners, and they've done all of it simply by replying to messages. They now receive tens of thousands of messages a day, and to this day they still reply to every single one of them. There is power in the voice of your audience. Listening to that will get you compelling content. Engaging with that audience, replying, retweeting, and engaging will build that audience's confidence in your brand and make your station far more popular and engaging.